Hey, it's Iron Lamb, and it has been a while since I've last posted. I'm not going to waste too much time with introductions, so I'll just get right into it. If you're observant, you may have noticed that the drawing I'm working on in this video is heavily referenced and basically traced from a photograph I took of myself recently. I think that most artists can agree that heavily referencing and even tracing a photo, if it's a photo you took yourself, is not a mortal sin, though we may have once considered it such under the terroristic regime of the website DeviantArt. Under ArtFight's rules, this aspect of my process would exclude any resulting artwork from being counted as an attack. ArtFight's current verbatim stance on tracing and using bases in attacks is as follows. Bases, character creators, and doll makers may be used for character images but must be credited. They may not be used for attacks. This includes websites like P-Crew, Hero Forge, video game character creators, and other doll makers. This includes artwork traced from posable 3D models, such as Clip Studio Paint, Design Doll, and similar programs, self-made bases, and photographs you have taken. I'll let that simmer for you for a second here. I want to make a quick disclaimer that this is not a comprehensive opinion piece about my thoughts on tracing and its validity in artwork. I've been thinking about making a separate, thoroughly researched video about tracing's place in the creation of art, so don't jump to conclusions based on what I haven't said or what it looks like I might think. There will probably be a video up one day explaining my thoughts more in depth, so if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it when it comes out. If you're not familiar with ArtFight, it is an extremely popular annual art event hosted online every July. Every year there is a theme, and participants can join one of two teams based on the theme. These teams compete against each other by making art of characters belonging to members of the opposing team. This kind of artwork is referred to as an attack. I won't get into the specifics as the gist of it is really all you need to know for the purposes of this video. ArtFight recently did an overhaul of the rules page on their website, including a rework of the page's layout, the rewording of some of the current rules, and the addition of new rules. Again, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to skip over anything irrelevant to the topic at hand. If you're curious about some of the changes made, you can check the Wayback Machine and look through them yourself. Anyways, from what I have gathered, looking back and forth between the old and new versions of the rules myself, the overhaul's main purpose seems to have been to improve the clarity on the ArtFight team's stance on various rules and restrictions. ArtFight has been catching a lot of flack over some of these changes over the past week, particularly regarding the new wording of the rule on tracing, which previously read, "We define art theft as directly using an image you didn't create, tracing, directly referencing someone else's artwork, or using someone else's art as a component of your work without permission." Art theft applies to all visual mediums, such as photography and 3D models. Attacks may not incorporate elements that are heavily referenced or traced directly from the works of others, which includes photos, 3D models, and any artwork. I think ArtFight's rules are poorly written, which is probably why they've revised them so many times over the years, but I will say that I think this latest version of their rules page is the most clear and easy to understand version of it. For example, ArtFight's previous tracing rule completely prohibits any form of tracing altogether, and declares it as art theft through its wording. While I sincerely doubt that that was the intention of the rule, that's what it says. That would include something as minute and harmless as tracing line art over your sketch. They do go on to say that you cannot trace directly from the works of others. However, that's not a clarification of the previous statement on tracing, it's just another item in the rules. And, maybe my position on the spectrum is showing here, and I'm just being nitpicky, but I do think that clarity is extremely important when it comes to rules. And that's why I appreciate that in the latest iteration of the tracing rule they seem to realize they can't just outright ban the action of tracing and expect everyone to know what kind of tracing they're referring to. Despite all this, I can understand what the spirit of the rule is, which is just banning tracing over other people's work without permission. I'm telling you this because I want to provide some kind of reasoning for giving ArtFight the benefit of the doubt for what I'm about to say. Obviously, this does not excuse the rules being poorly written in the first place, but it does kind of help you to understand that what it appears they are saying may not actually be what they want to say. The latest version of the rules page makes it as I said earlier, significantly easier to parse what their actual intention is, although it's not perfect. What I interpreted as the spirit of the rule on tracing in the previous iteration of the rules page was that you cannot trace over other people's artwork of any medium without permission. According to the rules, this applied to all artwork and characters posted on the platform, though I have my own opinions on this specifically regarding tracing photographs not belonging to you. I can concede that this is reasonable for at least legal reasons. After all, it would probably end up expensive for the art fight team to get caught in the crossfire of some kind of copyright lawsuit. Ultimately, I take no issue with this rule other than the poor wording of it. The current iteration of the rule, which I will display on screen next to the old rule, seems to say something slightly different. If you can recall what it is from the beginning of this video, kudos to you and your memory. The new version of the rule, introduced on May 9th, builds upon the original rule and says that you cannot trace 3D models, self-made bases, or photographs that you yourself have taken. Online, there is obviously a lot of conversation going on about this rewording, but I've seen a lot of people saying that this rule isn't new, since tracing has always been prohibited, but I would argue that this is in fact a new rule given that it specifies 3D models and even your own photos, which nothing was said about either of those before. The rule and the intention of the rule has clearly evolved. So what is the deal with that then? Tracing photographs is a notoriously divisive method in the art community, and while I could go into depth on my opinions on tracing, that would be best saved for another video, so I will be brief. Famous artists such as Andy Warhol, Norman Rockwell, and Audrey Flack implemented tracing photographs into their workflows. Many digital artists use free-to-use 3D models such as those built into Clip Studio Paint to aid in anatomical and perspectival accuracy. In my opinion, when employed as a tool rather than as the entire basis of an artwork, tracing is a completely valid part of an artistic process. I'd hardly call it any different from putting a cup on a piece of paper face down and tracing around it to make a perfect circle. As long as what you create from it has a fundamentally different artistic vision, and purpose from the photo you traced from, I see no issue with it. Of course, this only applies if the photo isn't yours. If the photo is yours, go wild, do whatever, it's your work. You can do what the hell you want. Now, this is what I said before about poorly written rules comes into play, because despite what the rule actually says, there's a chance that they're not being specific enough about what it is they're actually trying to prohibit. Art Fight has, as far as I'm aware, always prioritized the quality of the artwork drawn for their event rather than the quantity of it. Meaning what the Art Fight team would rather see from their users is a small amount of works with clear effort and care put into them rather than many works with a low amount of effort and care. And this is what I believe their new rule regarding photograph and 3D model tracing is aiming to combat in their own roundabout, poorly illustrated way. In the footage that's been playing throughout the video, I am drawing a picture based on a photograph of myself that I took. I will replay the footage wherein I trace the photo so you can see, again, exactly how I was tracing the image. I traced the construction of the anatomy straight from the image. From there, I drew the rest of the image myself, heavily referencing the original photo for aspects that were difficult for me, such as the arms and the shoulders, but you can clearly see from the end result that the drawing produces a much different vibe, I guess, than the photograph does. The drawing is edgier and rougher due to the style, colors, the line art, and though my face is censored in the original photo, trust me when I tell you that the facial expression is completely different. And though this does not matter much in terms of artistic expression, the character in the image also has a completely different body type than I do. There is so much difference between the photograph and the drawing that it was traced from, that I at least would consider the drawing a different artwork, and not just a traced ripoff of the original photo, regardless of the amount of referencing and tracing used in the process. As an example of the employment of tracing that would not result in a different artwork, I will play a recording of myself tracing, in what I would consider to be an ineffective manner from the same image. As you can see, I'm constructing the shape of the drawing directly from the photograph, taking no artistic liberties concerning style or mood or lighting or the pose itself. It is, for all intents and purposes, the exact same work as the photograph, with nothing of value added or removed, save for maybe the smiley face I added in lieu of my face. In case my words are failing me, I hope that the visual comparison of these two methods is telling enough about the discrepancy between tracing being used as a tool and tracing being used as the entire framework for a piece. This is what I believe ArtFight is trying to avoid with this new addition to the tracing rule: low effort, haphazard work that improper use of tracing will produce. I can't say for sure, as I have not spoken to the ArtFight team myself, and obviously nobody knows what they're thinking except for the team themselves, but this is the most logical conclusion that I can come up with. It just doesn't make any sense for them to ban tracing images altogether, you know? And again, this is the best case scenario. This is me playing devil's advocate. This was not my first impression of the rule after I read it. My first impression was that the ArtFight team lacks nuance and common sense, which could very well be the case. After all, the art community is well known for its neurotic stances on tracing, and many artists still hold the belief that tracing of any kind equals a crime deserving of a lifetime in jail. All that being said, if that is in fact the case, I still find it preposterous that tracing your own photographs in any way is prohibited. I don't think tracing photos that you yourself have taken should be against the rules, as the photograph is already your artwork to begin with. If you want to badly trace it, that's up to you, and I think that you're well within your rights to do so. If it's somebody else's photograph, that's another story, but there can be no theft taking place when tracing your own photographs. Like, by definition, you can't steal what already belongs to you. If it appears low effort, then, so be it. You can't catch them all, right? So that brings me to my biggest critique of this rule, which is that it's, intentionally or not, exclusionary towards beginner artists with less skill. Because most often a badly traced photograph is indicative of a beginner artist trying to find their way. And again, would be another story if tracing photographs not belonging to you was the only thing banned, but they updated the rule to specify photographs that you yourself have taken cannot be traced. As an event that strives to foster a positive environment where artists of all skill levels can participate and make art for one another, which, by the way, it literally says on the same page that the rule against tracing your own photographs is on. It's ironic to me that they're enforcing this barrier towards artists of lower skill levels who probably just want to have fun and draw with everyone else the best they can. Which is really what it all comes down to, isn't it? ArtFight's not a professional gallery or exhibition. It's not a formal competition. It's supposed to be a fun, casual, lighthearted game for all artists to make and receive artwork. The ArtFight team is taking itself far too seriously, I believe, and it's almost laughable, to be frank. So to summarize, ArtFight's updated policy on tracing prohibits any kind of tracing of free-to-use 3D models, your own drawings, and your own photographs. What I believe is the most logical explanation to this ridiculous addition to the rules is the complete filtering out of perceived lower quality or lower effort work made through tracing as a framework for the art rather than as a tool. Despite this, I do not think it should be disallowed to trace your own art in photos or 3D models which you have declared permission to use, especially seeing as they come with a paid art program.
Oh, hell no!
You can't steal or rip off your own artwork. And while I understand that they prioritize the quality of work over the quantity of it, ultimately I think that the ArtFight team is forgetting they host a fun, casual event for artists of all skill levels and skill sets, and not a professional, serious competition. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching or listening. Let me know what you think in the comments, as this is a heavily debated topic in the community right now, and I'm curious to see what other people have to say, or if they even agree with me at all. If you implement tracing into your art process, Let me know your story down in the comments. I think it's important to see how these rules are affecting people before coming to conclusions about it, so your experience is valuable. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.